The much-beloved South Korean Netflix series Squid Game is back with the much-awaited second season set to be released today. Now, will Season 2 live up to the hype? We're joined by film critic Pierce Conran. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for joining us. So we are expecting to see some new but also familiar faces in Season 2, right?
That's right. So, of course, there are a number of familiar faces are returning to the show, not least, of course, the star Lee Jung-jae playing player 456, or Sung Gi-hoon, who does return as the star of the show. He was more of a kind of a happy-go-lucky, goofy character in Season 1. After the experiences of Season 2, he's a bit more serious this time around.
Right.
We also have Lee Byung-hun, who was the front man, the mastermind of the games in Season 1. He's back in Season 2 in a much expanded role. I think people will get very excited to see how that role has gotten bigger. Wee Ha-jun is back as the cop Hwang Jin-ho, who took a bullet and fell off the cliff at the end of Season 1, so he does return, still looking for his brother. And then even we have Gong Yoo, who had a cameo in Season 1. He returns with a similar cameo. It's a much bigger one, and it's a pretty exciting one, of a very ferocious performance from Gong, which I think people will be excited about. But people will also be excited about all the new characters. There's a huge amount of new faces that are joining the games, of course. We have Im Shi-wan is in there as are Kang Ye-shim and Yang Dong-gun playing a mother and son pair. There's Park Sung-hoon, who plays a character, a somewhat controversial character so far, a transgender woman who used to be a special forces soldier.
Right.
Park, of course, is a male actor, has been drawn a bit of controversy, but having already seen the show, I would say that people will be pretty excited by the role, so hopefully that won't be a big problem going forward. Also, Chae Sung-yeon, or T.O.P. of Big Bang, is also in the cast. A few other names like Lee Jin-wook and Park Gyu-yeon, who are known for Sweet Home.
Right, these are already popular and famous actors here in the country. Then I have to ask you, what are some of the key points that audiences should pay attention to or, really look forward to for the Season 2?
Well, Squid Game, the Squid Game within the show, of course, the big game they all partake in, it is largely the same, but there are a few key differences. Some of the individual games are different, so people can be excited to kind of see, what kind of games these players will partake in and the deftly spins on them. But the crucial difference, I think, is that players are given a chance to choose as a group at the end of each round whether they want to continue the games or not. So they can take the money that's already been won and leave, or continue together. And of course, it's very exciting to see how the factions create between the yeas and the nays. And I believe director Hwang Dong-hyuk has mentioned that for him this was a reflection of, or a way to reflect how polarized society has become in recent years, even more so than when the first show came out. So there's very little, people aren't really in the middle anymore. They're very strongly against or for something. And this show really plays with that, because in a very exciting way. I don't want to spoil it too much, but I think that is one of the big new pluses of the show.
Well, so many fans here in the country have been looking forward to this day, the 26th of December, to watch Season 2. And the Squid Game 2 fever is also sweeping the globe, isn't it?
Absolutely. The excitement for the show is, it's truly sky high. Of course, we have the original Squid Game was such an enormous hit, by far the biggest show or film, anything on Netflix, and it remains very much on that #1 perch. And the global media push has been truly enormous. There have been various kind of games staged across the world, so people are suiting up as players from Squid Game in Paris and in Los Angeles, and they're taking part in these in sort of like similar competitions. And there's just been lots of stuff like that, and major stars like Lee Jung-jae appearing once again on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, and other stars. Lee Byung-hun is also kind of appearing on various talk shows in America. Even Johnnie Walker Whiskey, the largest whiskey brand in the world, has launched its own Squid Game branded bottles. The bottles each have numbers from 1 to 456, the number of players in the game. And those bottles are now ubiquitous. You see them all across the world.
Right. Well, it'll be the audiences, both at home and abroad, to be the judges of to see the success of the Season 2. But what is it that will make the new season better or even more successful than the first one? What do you think?
Well, I mean, first of all, something like Squid Game, which was truly a kind of a zeitgeist-grabbing global cultural phenomenon, it's clear that a follow-up is kind of guaranteed to be a success. And the question is, can it possibly top season one? And that would mean it would have to be the biggest thing of all time again. Now, season one came out in the thick of the pandemic, and it was a surprise phenomenon. And while the world is still struggling today in various ways, as certainly we are here in Korea, the thirst for the show may be a little different. So it'll be interesting to see how people respond to it. That said, because people are familiar and love the original, I expect people will, of course, come back and watch season two. I was very lucky to see the whole show already a few weeks ago. I personally think it's actually a superior season.
Wow.
The show is kind of richer this time around. It's more balanced, but it still kind of stays true to what we love about season one. It's the right amount of familiar and new, and those aforementioned political allegories are really quite powerful. I also think the cast is a bit stronger this time. Lee Byung-hun in particular is absolutely magnificent. So if it can top season one or not in terms of pure numbers, I have no idea. But I wouldn't be the one to bet against it.
Well, I'll take your words for it. But season 2 has been already nominated in the Best Television Series Drama category at the Golden Globe Awards. That is set to be held next month, and even before the release. That says a lot about the season 2 itself, right?
It was kind of a surprise because it is a very early nomination. Obviously, the jurors, the voting members of the Golden Globes have had access to the series, but I was surprised to see it there because I wouldn't have thought many people would have watched it yet. So it could be a case that a few people watched it and they all of them loved it and all of them voted for it, or it's also possible that some people have already just kind of got swept up in Squid Game hype and might have just kind of nominated it ahead of time. But that said, it really doesn't matter because I think that when people do watch it, I do think later today when the show drops and when the critical embargo lifts, you will see some extremely positive reviews, and I expect it'll be a big player in the TV award season over the next year. Once again, for Hwang Dong-hyuk, I think Lee Byung-hun will be a big contender for acting awards as well.
Wow. Alrighty, Pierce, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Thanks very much for having me.